Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another live episode of Journeys with MM. Wait, you're over here. And Renee Jaworski. We are so happy. MM Farwell. See, I have my last name today, and she doesn't, but that's MM Farwell. We all know her. MM is the reason for the season, okay? So she's the one who really is the architect of Journeys. We've been learning so much, all of us, about these amazing individuals who are like movers and shakers and people of impact and influencers. And today we have, I mean, how many followers does Auntie Rosie have?
It's over 3 million, like 3.5 million.
Oh my gosh. And they all adore her. And we are two of those million, you know. We're definitely two.
Watch videos and not smile. I mean, there's a few like emotional ones she did. She went to a memorial and there was some not happy stuff that happened there. But if you go in and you listen to any of her videos, oh my God, her food reviews when somebody's
oh, they are great.
Well, she does dramatic readings of her trolly comments.
And that's the best part is when you're going to see a clip coming right up and we'll react to it, but she mentioned somebody, you know, a troll who's like critiquing her eyeshadow. So I did the same thing that she did. Yes. And I don't know if we can really show, but I did not blend my eyeshadow, and that's in solidarity. Okay. I did not. I see her smiling backstage. So yeah.
It's like the red lipstick campaign. It's the
yes. We have to hold our own in this world, and I think being a social media influencer, we'll talk to her about it. But I think you have got to have nerves of steel. You got to wake up every day and be ready to go because there's trolls over here and there's trolls over there, and but you're making impact, and that's what she's doing. So she gets up, and for every troll, you've got like thousands of people who are just so positively motivated to do better with their lives because they've met this amazing person.
And she, so I actually found her on Instagram first and then switched over to her TikTok to check out more videos. But she, you know, she's all about social justice and will take on injustice head on. There's no, she's not hesitating.
She's a warrior. You are not going to you're not going to phase her. You're not going to make her flinch. No. If you want to go head to head with Auntie Rosie, let me just tell you, say your prayers, and everybody just
right here. We're ready for you.
And just be ready. Just be ready with the gurney that's all right. Let's play the little clip that MM put together because I think it kind of encapsulates all of the beauty of Auntie Rosie. Here we go.
I am happy to be anybody's Auntie Rosie. That being said, I do have some boundaries on TikTok and in life. I know, boundaries. Those are hard for some people. First of all, there's some people I just don't want to talk to or be friends with. No, I don't want to agree to disagree. No, I don't think we should be friends. And no, I really don't want to hear it anymore. We've talked it just about to death. Now, you can believe what you want to believe. That's fine. I just don't want to hear it. I'm not some sweet little fat Western grandma who bakes cookies and muffins and farts rainbow glitter and is all about light, love, and positivity. No, I don't really like a lot of people anymore, and it's getting harder as I get older. I'm pretty sure I'm going to start biting people eventually and charging for it.
Let's make a super easy chicken thigh
Oh,
fry
sweet
next.
baby Jesus.
Now, these are
No,
going
you
to
just
be
made the
really,
baby
really
Jesus
hot,
cry.
so be super careful.
You made the baby
All right,
Jesus
so
poop
I
his
let them
diaper.
cool. I'm going to cut into
Oh,
them
that
so you
was
can
terrible.
see just how moist and delicious
Oh,
this
I'm dry
chicken
as a
is.
bone. No double for you.
Look at that.
Emotional
It's perfect.
damage. Oh my! This went sideways really fast. Oh, and yogurt, of course, to go with the Nutella. Make sure it's all covered. Yeah, you wouldn't want your Nutella to burn. Oh, good Lord, butter. Someone needs to call 911 for her. Putting it in the oven and... Oh, good Lord, but... No! Oh, emotional damage. No, no domino pax domine. No double for you. Don't eat it!
Oh, hi. Oh, comment. Okay. Okay, let me read this one. Oh. Well, my. Whatever will I do? Some random internet troll doesn't like my eye makeup.
My content is very much a buffet. I hope you enjoy the ride. Please keep your hands and feet in the ride at all times and remain seated.
I can't even breathe. And I put the video together.
She was absolutely devastated by the fan not agreeing with the way she applied her eyeshadow. I mean, it was just devastating, which is how we all feel, I think, when a stranger,
you know,
yeah,
I thought there might be crossing a boundary. So I was working hard over that.
Yeah, no, but I thought it was so great too, because everybody in the media and social media influencers are some of the more popular people now in the media. I mean, like these are the people of impact in society, right? And they really affect change, but you are constantly, you have a target on your back. The second you go out and try to do anything interesting or different or powerful, people just freak out. And so I love how she takes on the trolls. She doesn't just go and hide. She doesn't ostrich, like she and she shows it, and she's modeling for us, I think, like how to deal with conflict in your lives. Like now that I saw that, like I feel instantly better about all the crazy things random people or robots online have said to me, and I'm like, why do I care? You know, come on, just unfurl the fan.
TikTok has got to be one of the, I mean, you got to have some thick skin. Or you got to be like us and just not give a fuck what anybody else says.
Well, let's find out all about how she weathers all of those waves. So everybody, you know her, you love her, and here she is live on Cosmos Creative Television. Your Auntie Rosie, my Auntie Rosie.
Auntie
Hi
Rosie. There! Yay! I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too.
I put that video clip together and I still couldn't breathe laughing through it. Oh,
how funny.
I love the balance and the contrast between your humor and then when you're serious or you're going at somebody who's attacking something you love or yourself, you are fierce. Like there's no in between. There's like, and then
right.
You know, like, you're out here.
I'm not. It's sort of like I've never been a people pleaser, and I don't want everyone to be my friend. I seriously don't. And
I hear that.
I got on TikTok because I was bored to death on Facebook during the pandemic, and it just sort of, I had no idea that anyone would ever follow me.
Right.
I just decided to sit down and talk, and here I am, 3 years later.
I'm trying to remember. I think you showed like one of your first videos. Not
yeah.
Too long ago, didn't
I
you?
just had my year anniversary. My 3-year anniversary on June 23rd.
Gotcha.
And
how did you you started out? Can you just talk about how you first started? Because I know it was like political and social justice, and just, can you just tell us a little bit about that?
It was we were in lockdown in 2020, and I thought Facebook had turned into an absolute dumpster fire. All my crazy cousins were on here telling everyone, that surgical masks would kill you and give you brain damage. And I saw a news. I was watching CNN, and I saw a story about a lady named Mary Jo Lopp, who was a TikToker, and they called her TikTok Grandma. And she had come up with this idea to completely ruin and screw up Trumpanzee's Tulsa rally. And so I was like, that sounds fun, because you could get as many tickets as you want. And so I actually downloaded TikTok after seeing her. And I did get tickets to that rally, and then I watched it go down in flames. They actually even had an overflow stage because they thought that many people were coming.
Wow.
It was just like
an overflow stage.
They had an overflow stage, yep.
Oh my gosh.
Rosie's at home with her cat up over her shoulders. The whole time, right?
Yeah, and I've actually become really good friends with Mary Jo. She came 2 years ago for Pride in Omaha, and she's coming again this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is really, really cool. Talk a little bit about not being a people pleaser. That's one of the biggest problems right now in society. I think most people identify like that they've had to deal with that at some point in their life. You said you've never been that way. What do you attribute that to? Is that like the way you were raised, or what?
No, because my mother was, I remember my mother, and I felt so bad for her. She was in her 80s, and some sort of, I don't know, I was telling her something that had happened where I'd stood up for myself, and she looked at me and she said, I wish I could do that. She said, I wish I could stop caring what other people thought of me. I thought, oh, how tragic that would be. I was never that way. I was just always, I was always happy to have a few very good, close friends. I don't want everyone as my friend. I was always too weird to have everyone as my friend anyway. And I was always I was one of the weird kids anyway. I mean, I was into music and, artsy fartsy stuff. And so I wasn't one of the popular kids. I wasn't a cheerleader or anything. And I was happiest that way. I was in theater,
Yep. Mm-hmm. But you had your own like friends that you could count on.
Yes. And friends that I made in high school, I'm still in friends with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something that is very important to me. So when I moved, I lived in Minneapolis for almost 30 years. I moved away from Omaha. And when I came back in 2012, and it was really nice to reconnect with, I mean, we had reconnected through, Facebook and stuff, but no, I'm still friends with them. I have one friend that I've known since second grade. I have another friend I've known since preschool.
Right.
So,
yeah.
That's awesome.
I think that makes a big difference because you never felt desperate for attention or some kind of love. It seems like you were already secure in who you had. And I think it only takes a few good people in somebody's life. If you have just a few healthy relationships, who cares what the rest of the world thinks? Like all you care about are the opinions of those people that, mean something to you.
Right.
And now I want to talk about you being a theater kid. This is really interesting because what you're doing now, do you see any of your training that you had back then as being carried over into the social media realm?
Some. I mean, I got into theater in high school, and I really enjoyed it. I was never the lead actress either. I was always a character actress. I know, surprise, surprise. And I did makeup and costumes. That's what.
Oh, okay.
I was mostly interested in. My senior year, I was one of the student directors, but and then I went to the University of Tulsa my first year in college and became the assistant costume designer there, and then my boss down there got me recommended me for a job in New York City. So I actually worked for the Public Theater when I was 19 years old, and found out very quickly I did not want to be a costume designer. So I'm very glad I did it. But I worked in the Public Theater when Joe Papp was there and the whole, I did the Shakespeare in the Park Festival in 1985.
What? This is great. Well, wait, what did you not like about those experiences that turned you away from them?
It was sort of one step below fashion design. I mean, I would do handwork for some of the designers there, and they were like, oh, you have to go to this coffee shop in the East Village because otherwise somebody from another designer is going to see my designs. And I was like, oh, for God's sakes. No, I just was not, I was like, I don't know. So
I'm sitting here thinking about the comment that put you into that deep depression that was in the video over your eye makeup. And I'm really sorry that tragic event happened to you. I just want to say
clutching my pearls.
But I also want to say, how dare they if you've been doing makeup since high school?
Well, and I always say to people, if I'm doing eye makeup on myself, I'm doing it for myself, nobody else.
Right?
Yeah.
I like to play around with it. And I actually took advanced theatrical makeup in college. So
that's
I
really
can do prosthetics and the whole thing.
Wow, that is so cool. I love that. That's a talent that I don't have. All the prosthetics and all that prosthetics. You have to be really visually oriented and have that hand-eye coordination and then the creativity on top of it. It's like being a scientist in a way.
Right.
I think that's fantastic. But then between then and quarantine, you didn't do anything in the forward-facing arts, like in fan engagement arts.
Nope. I was on TikTok. I was on Facebook, but that's not really. I had never made videos until TikTok, and But I mean, I had a very sort of, I think the big influences first was my mother. She read to us all the time. So I think a lot of my like crazy names for Humpty Dumpty McBuckstick sound a lot like Dr. Seuss and Monty Python and some Carol. I mean, we watched Carol Burnett all the time. So there was a lot of comedian shows that had a big influence, I believe, on me. Because I've tried to analyze it, because people will say, where does that come from? It's like, I don't know, it just pops out of my brain. Sometimes I say the weirdest things, and it's like, what?
Sometimes it surprises you. My husband does that. He can come up with these euphemisms, nicknames, just random phrases like out of the blue. And I'm like, where did that come from? He's like, I don't know. It even startled me.
Well, yeah, I have a lady who comes in. I assume it's a female. I'm not sure. A person who comes into my live almost every night, and we call that person the cat troll. And they apparently got mad at me one night about my cats. I'm not sure why. And they come in every night and accuse me of abusing my cats. My cats are so spoiled. And last night she came in. I read children's books every night on live. And I had just finished the book, and she said something to the effect of, oh, well, you're deforesting the planet and reducing oxygen levels for your cats, and you're a terrible person. And I looked at the camera, for some reason I said, oh no, I said, this book is actually made out of fondant frosting. I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but that came out of my head. It was a frosting book. It was made out of frosting. So it wasn't made out of paper.
I don't sleep well, and at night you're on late for me sometimes, and I'll go on, you're on there, and no matter what my day was, I end up laughing, and I'm like, this is a great way to end the night.
Well, and it's fun reading the children's stories, because my mother was a teacher, and she read to us every single night. And so some people sort of have that nostalgia of, I love hearing a story read to me, and then some people never got read to, and they're sort of like rediscovering their inner child by hearing me read Dr. Seuss, you know.
Right. So the dramatic readings of
the dramatic.
I'm like, well, I just want to send her like a Listerine bottle or something and have her dramatically read the back of it, because it's so funny.
Well, and those came about because in 2020 we did a lot of call out videos. I mean, we do, you know, somebody had a bad, you know, a nasty post or something, and we'd get on there and cuss them upside one side and down the other. Well, the community guidelines have gotten a lot stricter.
Yeah, very
strict.
You
have to find a clever way to sort of publicly shame someone. And I'm just like, well, I thought of, well, there's mean tweets, you know. I can't remember what late night person does that, but reading mean tweets, I'm like, well, all I'm doing really is reading what they wrote. Mm-hmm. So if the comment's okay, then certainly a dramatic reading would be okay.
Well, you're doing, well, first of all, a lot of it's fan engagement. I do think sometimes trolls do that knowing you're going to, or hoping you're going to read that. There are certain people that have that. They want to get famous by you highlighting them as well. And that, and also too, like it's something, like you said, it's something that they were proud of and that they put publicly on there. And of course, you know, it's holding them accountable for what they do. Because I think some people think that you can abuse other people, and if it's online or something, then it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really hurt people, and they can get away with it. But I think you engaging in that, it's like, you know, hey, you said this, I'm holding you accountable for it.
Usually the ones, though, that try to get that, they do it, it's so overt and clumsy that it's like, yeah, I know you're doing that on purpose, or it's already an account that I know. I know my trolls, and
I know my trolls.
The one thing that they don't realize, I work in public school, and I was an English major, and one thing that's very, very difficult to disguise is your writing style. Yeah. And so they might have 67 accounts. I mean, there's been one for the last 2 nights who's come in over and over and over and over again and just gotten kicked out every time. But all they'd have to do is write one sentence and I'd know exactly who it was.
Yeah. It's like different Halloween masks. They're just putting on the different mask, but you can tell the MO.
And how boring would that be, just to come in and say one sentence and get kicked out, one sentence and get kicked? It's like, oh my God.
That's their entire pastime. That's a little worrisome that's what they're doing.
I had one night that we put in when we mute them for 5 minutes, I say we're putting them in the corner. We put them in the corner every 5 minutes for over 2 hours, and they stayed in the live for that entire time.
Wow.
I'm like,
wow.
How bored do you have to be to do that?
Is that a frenemy? Maybe it's almost a frenemy. Maybe they really like you. And
or it's obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't know what it is. Because I would say 99% of them I don't know. I've never had any interaction with. And I do also apparently have a Reddit hate group, so I feel like I moved up.
Boy.
I need to get your autograph. You have moved up even further than I thought.
I mean, it's like, well, Mama Tot has several. I know Tizzy has several. Dinesh has several. It's like, ooh, I finally got one. You know?
So that's a place for all the trolls to go, and then what do? They just speak in trollese and they entertain one another.
Reddit has been an absolute unmoderated dumpster fire since the early 2000s, and it really hasn't changed. It's like it's basically an old style message board.
I never got involved with it because it just seemed kind of outdated or something.
There's Reddit after subreddit after like, oh good Lord. I've heard reports back that somebody found the Reddit on me, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not going. I don't care.
It's an honor. I feel like it's an honor. And to that end, I wanted to say, do you feel that you're famous? I mean, do you actually feel that, like, how many people are tuning in at night after night, and they're, you're really, like, what does that mean to you? Does it mean anything to you? Was that part of the plan?
No.
She was
no, I knew one person when I got on TikTok, and that was a friend of mine's 14-year-old daughter, and that was it. And so I didn't know how the platform worked or anything. And I was like, I asked the child one question. I was like, I am too embarrassed to have this child try and teach me. So I started Googling, like, how do I duet? How do I stitch? What is this? And I found a lot of really good information that way. So I taught myself to TikTok by Googling. I think I'm better known in Omaha just because people get the face recognition, because I was in, they did do, the Omaha World Herald, our newspaper, did do an article on me. And I ended up on the front page in a giant rainbow muumuu. It's like, I was like, I thought I'd be like maybe in the, I don't know, entertainment section or something. And must have been a slow news day, and I was on the front cover. So yeah, I always say I'm famous like the weather girl in Minot, North Dakota is famous.
That's still fame. That's still fame. But of course, you have a global audience, though. I mean, you do have a global audience, people from all over the world. I mean, like, everybody's just tuning in to see you. And what you say actually can change hearts and minds, right? So that's the social justice angle here. Yeah. Can you talk us through your journey in social justice? What is your interest? Have you always been like that? Were you an activist?
Well, it was funny because this last weekend I was up in Minneapolis for Pride, and we had a TikTok meet and greet booth. So there were several of us up there, and I was talking to people, and I started doing social justice in Minneapolis, in like 1990. And I worked I got a job with a little social justice group called COACT, and we actually did door-to-door stuff. And we were working on national health care, and then I worked for Clean Water Action, and I worked for Citizen Action, and worked on a lot of political campaigns. And I mean, it was sort of that was part of the journey of education for me too, because I was raised very conservative Christian, Presbyterian, and very, very, very conservative Republican. My mother described herself as an Eisenhower Republican, and my father did actually burst into tears when Richard Nixon resigned. So I'm sure he would have been a great Trumplican. He would have loved him. However, my mother did not like him. Her journey we always talked politics. We didn't agree very often, but her last presidential election, she was in her, she would have been in her 90s. And she hated him so much by the time the election rolled around, she voted for Hillary Clinton.
Wow.
And I was just flabbergasted when she told me that. I was like, oh my God, he turned a lifelong Republican into a Democrat.
Yeah, she voted against him. It wasn't really a vote for Hillary. It was a vote against him, right?
I said, why did you vote for Hillary Clinton? Because I thought she'd write in Eisenhower or somebody. And she said, he's not a Christian. She said, he's a liar. She said, he's a philanderer. And she said, which was strong words for my mother. And she said, I thought Hillary Clinton had adequate experience to fill the post for 4 years. I was like,
okay. She thought it through. There you go.
She did.
There you go. If
So
only everybody had thought it through.
No kidding.
So one of my favorite videos that you did is the one where, no, actually, I think it was a live because I was in there for it. And somebody had brought up the library and the books. And then you had said something about a class. There was going to be a drag queen class or something. And everybody was going in and giving ideas. Like there was going to be Runway 101. And
I
laughed so.
Oh my God. Yeah. I kind of remember that one.
I was dying. It was hilarious. Oh my gosh. So there's going to be Vogue at 2 and Room 13.
Voguing 1, Voguing 2. Yes. Makeup, nails, hair. Yes. But yeah, I mean, there's so much. I do work in a grade school. I'm a special education paraeducator, and there's so much misconception about schools. And I mean, I've actually had people tell me that there is a drag queen in every grade school library. I'm like, no, there isn't. We'd appreciate the extra help, but no, there isn't.
That's a problem. Miscommunication is a huge problem. And you'd think with all the ways that we can communicate now that it wouldn't be. However, if somebody's stuck on listening to one channel, one station, one person, then they're not educating. They're not reaching out to all these things because there's so much fake. It's hard. People don't want to take the time to separate it out, right? Like they don't even want to bother.
Right.
They throw up their hands and they're like, I'm just not voting, or I don't care. Or, this is what I believe and you're not going to change my mind. And it's such a weird time. It really is, considering what ease we have to communicate with one another right now.
Well, and we have such as a Gen Xer, we had a couple computers at my high school when I graduated, big, giant, behemoths. I know we had one in the math lab, which I couldn't touch. There was one in the counseling center, but that was I graduated in 84. So that was kind of right when personal computers were starting to get sold. And all of the research papers that I did in high school were, done with card catalog, and I luckily could get to the University of Nebraska at Omaha library and research there. And now it's like, good Lord, I could go to a library in Venice and look at their collection online. And I have people who will not Google something. I've had people say, oh no, you have to Google it for me. No, I don't.
Yeah. Gen X over here too.
Gen X.
We didn't have a computer. I never had access to a computer until I went into college, and because I lived in a small area in Maine, and so they were there at the high school, but like you said, we weren't allowed to touch them. The teacher would do stuff, and we, talk through it. But I didn't actually sit at a computer until I was in college, and then it was DOS. Do you remember DOS?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember the blue screen of death. The blue screen of death traumatized me.
Yeah. So, they just have all these advantages now. We don't take care of. We're not.
Right, and I love people say they don't know how to use Google. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, we teach second graders how to use it. I mean, we really do. That's taught in second grade library sciences. It's and if you don't know how to do it, try and figure it out at least. Yeah. I had one lady say one night to me, and in the live, she was like, well, I'm just not, all computer savvy like you young people. And I was like, young people? I was like, how old are you? And she goes, I'm 52. And I was like, I'm 57. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I know more Gen Xers that are like computer programmers.
Mm-hmm.
I would have just probably said thank you when she compared me to not being old.
Well, it's this learned helplessness and pretending that you can't learn because you're old. It's like, oh, for God's sake, stop that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I wasn't allowed. My dad didn't allow us to think that way. We always had to be learning, always growing, always challenging ourselves. And yeah, it's hard. And it's hard to communicate with somebody who shuts you down and they don't want to, like, they're not even open-minded at all. And it's like, okay, well, then we're at an impasse and nothing's going to change.
And that's why there's certain people I just won't talk to anymore. I'm done with them. I mean, I spent hours when I first got on TikTok. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours talking to, Trumplican supporters, and it's like I am just spinning my wheels in the mud.
You're not getting anywhere because they're coming with preordained ideas and they are not going to budge because it's a source of pride for them. There's even this thing called a paradox of power, where the more you try to argue someone into something, the more they pull away. So you're wasting. I got to the same point, Auntie Rosie. Like, I got to the exact same point where I would engage with strangers. I'm not talking about like my loved ones. I'm talking about like, you're with a stranger and you think, oh, I'm going to do some good. I'm going to show them logic and reason and compassion. And then it's like 15 hours later and you're like, they don't want logic. They don't want reason. They don't want compassion. No. They want whatever was told to them by, who knows why people believe what they believe, but they're not going to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I won't debate them, or I'll have them come in and they'll go, I want to debate you. No, because if I debate you, then I'm giving you legitimacy to your side. Like there is a side to, there's not, again, you're actually fighting against human rights. No, you can have a debate over pizza toppings, but no, not human rights.
Do you think some people like Trump and people who get into Trump, these are very extreme and like very obviously like this carnival barker attitude? Do you think they're just sort of getting off on the attention and they just like to say things to piss people off? Do you think they actually really internalize these beliefs and believe them?
I honestly don't know. I think it's probably a combination of both. I mean, I have a character for my backup account named Flossie Mae. And Flossie Mae was born out of a hat, and was a character I made up who at first was a very one-dimensional Trumplican, bad teeth, the whole thing. And Flossie Mae is based a lot on women that I know here in the Midwest, my own cousins, stuff like that, who basically have lived in their own little bubble, where they were taught from birth that you were supposed to get married after high school. Maybe you go to college, maybe not, but you have to get married. You have to have kids. You have to get that picket fence in the house and go to church and believe just like your parents believed and vote just like your parents voted or your husband votes. And they've never been out of that bubble. They have never been out of the bubble. So one of my roommate's sisters, when she was first starting to vote, it was, I think her first, might have been Clinton's second term. And Clinton wins, and my roommate called her and he goes, well, who'd you vote for? And she goes, well, whoever, I don't remember who was running against Clinton. And he goes, why'd you vote for them? And she goes, well, who else could I have voted for?
Wow.
Yeah. She had no concept that she could have voted. I mean, that she could have written somebody in, that she could have voted any other party. But for her, the whole concept had no concept that she could have voted differently.
Well, it's like people that go to the ballot. And so I consider myself an independent. My husband's an independent. We vote based on the person and our own personal stuff, right? So we actually analyze every person and we'll research and before we go vote. But
and I was the entire time I lived in Minnesota, I was an independent because there's only one ballot in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it might be gigantic because I think you need 10,000 signatures and you can get on the ballot. So there's like usually like 8 marijuana parties and parties you've never heard of. But in Nebraska, when I first came here, I was like, okay, I'm an independent, and I went to vote in the primary, and I got this ballot with. I'm like, who are these people? And they're like, well, those are the independent candidates. I'm like,
oh,
they actually print up 3 different ballots here.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And you cannot request, if you're an independent, you can't request one of the other ballots.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's weird. I've never
Oh,
heard
it's so stupid. So
That's
when I
good.
moved, when I actually had to declare that I was a Democrat.
Yeah.
Okay. I get that. Yeah.
But, but what I was trying to say, separate from that, like, irregardless of affiliation, was some people stick their heels in based on something, and then they're saving face. They can't possibly now say, maybe I made a mistake. It's time for me to jump ship, because they're trying to save face. They can't be. They feel like it's like, I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but if they've followed him since the beginning and they're like heels in the ground, and they've been telling you, oh, he's great, he's going to save everything, and then now they're like, even when you're like, all this, and you're still there, and
they still won't
see past the fact that that's who they're voting for. Like, period. Right. They're not gonna. It's like an ego thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
They don't want to admit that. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand it, because you're talking about your world. I mean, we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and I will say that, I mean, I was born during Johnson's presidency. I don't remember him at all. So the Republican presidents I've seen were Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush Light, and then Trumpanzee. And the only one of those Republican candidates I ever thought was dangerous was him.
Right.
I mean, I didn't like the other one's politics at all.
Yeah, but this was deeper than politics. It was everything he stood for, and it was his entire persona even coming into that. I mean, like,
right.
I was born in the 80s, and my whole thing from the 80s on was like, we would make jokes about, oh my gosh, like, imagine the apocalyptic idea of Donald Trump being president. Like, it was considered the worst thing ever. I think even Back to the Future did that. I think The Simpsons even did that. It was a nightmarish situation that was always considered like the end of the line. Like, America would have gone to the absolute end of their ethical or moral or political journey, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, who would want to entrust Trump with like anything? I wouldn't even want him to run a car wash. And then, so that, I think it was also a character thing, like what your mother was picking up on. It's like, even if you agreed with some vague political platform, he as a person was just so obviously incompetent, and just not anyone I would hire for at a cat grooming place, right? I mean, I wouldn't trust him with anything. It's weird.
Well, he doesn't seem like he's not even, doesn't even seem vaguely Republican.
Yeah, he used to be a Democrat, right? I mean, that was like his big thing for a long time, and then he switched. I'm not really clear on how or when, but something happened there.
The worst thing we have going on is that somebody goes into a voting booth, and all they do is they don't even read the names. They haven't researched anybody. They don't know half the names, but they're just going Republican, 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 Republican.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? So that takes away, I just find voting to be such a privilege. And so I don't want it taken away from me by me not putting investing in it. I want to know who I'm voting for. I want to know what I'm voting for.
Right.
I want to know that I'm good with my conscience, so I think people just don't it's become so crazy. We watch our politicians fight and call each other names and every other damn thing, and it's like, it's just become a circus, like you said. Well, we know where it came from, but now people just don't take it serious. They're like, I'm just not going to vote. Like, I don't like either of them.
Yeah. Which to me is just horrendous. I actually have more respect for somebody who would vote for Trump than somebody who doesn't vote at all.
Yeah,
because my family is very old. I'm 57. My mother was 40 when she gave birth to me, so she was born in 1925. Her mother was, I believe, 34 or 35 when she gave birth to my mother, and she was born in 1890. All of my grandparents were born in the 1800s. Neither of my grandmothers could vote until they were married, had children, and they were in their 30s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those are grandparents I played with. That was not great grandparents. That was my mom's mom.
And we talked about this another day on another show. Similar, I was saying I talked to people who are younger, and they like to make fun of the boomers and Gen X, and why didn't they do this, why didn't they do that, instead of seeing what we had. I mean, the resources weren't what they are now, and everybody tried to do their best. However, I just feel like people aren't investing in what they want to. They're investing in what they feel like they're now stuck in, and they don't want to change it. And we keep telling them, you don't understand the privilege, because my mother, it wasn't 100 years ago. My mother got married and had me before she could get a checking account in her own name, or even have her name on the checking account with my dad. So it's not like, I think a lot of young people think, oh, that was in the olden days. That was so long ago. And it's like one generation from me. It was my mom.
Well, and my mom didn't have kids till later because she taught music and art at there's a little town south of Omaha called Ralston, and she was in their school district. But at that time, she taught mostly in the late 40s and through the 50s. And in 1962, she got pregnant with my brother, and you could not be pregnant and be a teacher then.
Yeah.
You could not. I mean, she would have. So she quit. She could have come back after I was born, but she didn't. She taught privately out of her house. But yeah, you couldn't be a pregnant teacher.
Yeah.
No.
I think that's why we see it as like utmost importance and a privilege and a right that we need to exercise. And a lot of the younger kids are like, I don't like either one. I'm not voting. I mean, I go up and down with my son, now, he got tired of it. I broke him down.
Yeah, there's a lot of disenfranchisement.
It was like he didn't want to vote. And I'm like,
well, a lot of people don't trust the government. A lot of people think it's rigged, so there's a lot of distrust and there's a lot of like angst there. So that's why, I mean, you try to encourage people, but a lot of people just feel like their votes aren't going anywhere. They don't have any actual power. It's all predetermined. There's a lot of people are very jaded with a lot of the things that the government has done.
And some people seem to think the Electoral College governs every single election, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
that's an important point. Yeah,
I worked on some elections in Minneapolis. I remember one of them, the candidate we were working for lost by 23 votes.
It happens. Absolutely.
And it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's a good thing to keep in mind. They say all politics is local, but obviously you can vote. When you go to vote, you're not always voting just for the president. You're voting for all kinds of lower offices. I've worked on mayoral campaigns before. I mean, it's really rewarding. You're actually changing things on your local level. But I wanted to ask about the bubble. You talked about your cousins being in the bubble, and I think most people tend to live their lives in those bubbles. Most people that I've met, but they really do tend to adhere to whatever societal norms they were introduced to initially in their lives, and they don't really like to break barriers or bend rules. And that's the thing. How did you break out of the bubble? Because you're saying that your parents weren't, your cousins weren't. So how did you do it?
I don't think I was ever in it because I don't know. Maybe I was just hatched or part alien.
I was hatched.
But my mother said that my kindergarten teacher described my brother as a little old man, and he would put his hands in his pockets and go around the kindergarten room looking for, an activity that looked interesting, and then he would join in. And she said wherever the loudest, most raucous, naughtiest bunch of kids was, I was right in the middle of it. And but I was a good kid. I never even got a detention in high school. but I don't know. Maybe I just heard my drummer early. And I mean, I had questions about Christianity in second grade. And so, but I mean, part of that might also be just my mother being a teacher, and reading and education was very, very important. And I think that's one of the ways you break out of the bubble. And I also left Omaha when I was 18. So I moved out of the state and started meeting people. Well, the first year was at the University of Tulsa, and I literally met people from all over the world.
Right.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference. Is
Huge.
immersing yourself with people who have different cultures and upbringings and wealth and just everything, education, privilege, everything. It just makes such a big difference in you see things differently.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot with what we were just talking about with the way our politics is right now, is that people have never left their state. You know, they're married, they never went anywhere on their own, they never went visited, met new people. They don't even know. I find that's a lot of the problem with immigration, why you have all these people, because they're scared because they've never been around different people, and they're like, oh no. And I'm like, there's so much.
Like when you see those things on TikTok and they'll say, where is, show us, England on this world map, and no, and they can't.
Right.
Show us the United States. Where's that? No, can't find it. I mean, that's sad.
It is sad.
So, changing gears a little bit here, how did you get into the food part of your TikTok, which is so entertaining? Emotional damage. I love that. How did that start?
I want to double.
There, back in 2020, I was, you're going through your For You page, and there was, and he's still on there. I don't know what his name is. He looks like he's probably in China. He looks like Chinese national. He's very wealthy. You can tell that he has a beautiful house, and he has somebody cook for him, and it's incredibly expensive ingredients that he's using. I mean, he's using like Iberian ham and all of these things. And I was like, first of all, in the comments, everyone's like, what is this? What is this? He never answers. So either by the rules in China with TikTok, he couldn't answer, or there was a language barrier.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I like to research, so I started researching the ingredients. And I don't like to cook. I don't like to cook at all. I think it's boring. It's kind of like vacuuming.
I thought you were gonna say that you love cooking and that you're like really okay. This is interesting.
I like to watch it though. I mean, we watched Jamie Oliver and Julia Childs and Two Fat Ladies and Andrew Zimmern and Anthony Bourdain was my favorite. Yeah. And then like Iron Chef, and I called him Iron Chef. I nicknamed him Iron Chef. And so I just started, and then there was another, there's a couple accounts that are from Mongolia, and they have some very unusual ingredients that I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I have had, and some of that also is because you're seeing something that is freshly slaughtered. It doesn't look like it would be packaged in a grocery store, and it's like, oh, that's what that looks like whole, And so one of the people that I have actually consulted in researching is a friend of mine who's a veterinarian. I'm like, is this a pancreas? So, and there's been some ones that were extremely challenging, and, to find out what ingredients they were. I make mistakes. I don't really, that happens. It's a learning process. I've had some people get really, really mad at me when I make mistakes, and it's like, well, that's fine. You do the video then, or how I pronounce things. And sometimes my mother could speak Italian, and so sometimes I will mispronounce words on purpose because, like, I'll say basil instead of basil, but that actually comes from faulty towers.
Yeah, it's the British way. It is the British way.
And then sometimes I will pronounce something in a very Midwestern manner. Like instead of saying gnocchi, I'll say nochi. It's like, oh, I have had people absolutely lose their minds over that.
Yeah.
But what's funny is I'll mispronounce it. Huh?
Here we would say nochi.
Really?
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But what's funny is that we called it Nochi Gate because there huge arguments went on this video.
Gate.
Well, it just came up in my memories and I reposted it and the whole thing started again.
Mm-hmm.
The whole argument started again. And what's so funny is there was a couple ladies from Italy on there and they said, well, the way you're saying it, which is gnocchi, they said that is a proper pronunciation in northern Italy. But they said that the pronunciation varies around Italy.
I bet, yeah.
It's like,
I'm in Maine, so in Maine we like to add letters, take letters away, and don't tell us how to say something, because if we do, it would tell us that that's not how you say it, because then that becomes part of our language. Like we're like,
right,
no, that's how we say it, and that's where we're staying. Like,
right,
and then generations later, they're still pronouncing it that way.
right. And I've tried to use, some examples of place names. The Midwest was originally French territory. Part of the Louisiana Purchase. So there are French place names all over the Midwest, and we mispronounce all of them. I mean, we have Bellevue, Nebraska. It's not Bellevue. We have Papillion, Nebraska. It's not Papillon. There's Pierre, South Dakota. It's not Pierre.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that's just the way they ended up getting pronounced. And I had one guy get real mad and he said, well, you guys appropriated those words. No, we didn't. They were just given. And he said, and then you didn't care to pronounce them correctly. It's like, well, the people who came and settled the Midwest were Bohemians and Irish and Italians and all this great, mix of people. And they didn't know how to pronounce French words. Of course they didn't. And it was like, so that's what it kind of ended up being called.
Of course, yeah. Well, language evolves, right? And it's different dialects, different. Yeah, of course, it's a living thing.
And we're like a melting pot, and everybody's accents and everything get thrown in there together, and you end up with whatever the phrase is or the word, that everybody can pronounce it the same way. It doesn't matter how it's supposed to be pronounced. Now we're all saying it the same way. This is what it's going to be called.
Right.
So that's and then just with the cooking videos, I went from those, and then I occasionally found one that was really horrible. And I actually did start the hashtag kitchen masterpieces, because there's a few chefs on TikTok that are just amazing. And so I try to do a mix. I try to do a balance of both. Probably the ones that are bad are the more popular ones, but I can't just do those. I would be bored stiff doing that. So that's how kind of it evolved into that. But people think I like to cook.
The ribs, and he rounded them, and he put the ribs, and then he put the poutine in the middle.
Oh, he put fries, and he put cheese and gravy in the center. Oh my God, that looked good.
That looked good. I
think that was
one of the ribs. It's just like oozing inside, and I'm like,
I think that was the masked. It was either 2 men in a pot or masked cook. I think it might have been 2 men in a pot.
I can't remember.
And they make some really good stuff.
Yeah, that was good. I still think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who said that? Is that Alana?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
It's same with spelling words, how we spell that differently in different areas. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you'll find different spellings in Canada, England, Australia, New Zealand, any English speaking country. They're going to be different spellings and different pronunciations.
Right. Another aspect of you and your journey is about education. Your mother was passionate about education. You're passionate about education. Why is that something that's so important to you? I know everybody will say, well, education is a good thing, but you actually are dedicating a big portion of your life to that. And you could argue also that your TikTok is a wing of that in a way, where you're introducing people to different concepts. So take us through that a little bit. I mean, were you one of these kids who always felt like you would grow up to be in cat cameo? Like, was that always interesting for you, or is that like a more recent thing?
When I was in high school, I got the opportunity. I had started learning sign language in like second grade, and in high school I got the opportunity to work at the Boys Town Institute, and I was working with gifted deaf children. And my first year in college was at the University of Tulsa, and I wanted to go into deaf education. And I got down there, and like 2 months after I got down there, they announced they were closing the College of Education. It was like, oh, for God's sakes.
Oh, wow.
So that didn't happen. And I ended up, the majority of my adult life, I worked in engineering services. So I ran an asphalt laboratory.
Wow.
So I did quality testing on building materials.
Wow.
And I mean, I can bore you to death by talking about asphalt for hours and hours, or concrete. And when I worked for 2 different engineering firms up in Minnesota, and then I ended up working for the state of Minnesota. And I had a very profound life lesson, which was you don't have time. And I had someone who was very close to die. And I thought, I better learn something from this. And I thought, well, my mom's in her 80s, and I thought, I don't have time. And so I literally gave notice at work and packed everything up into a truck and moved back to Omaha.
Oh, wow.
And everyone thought I had lost my mind. It was like, well, I got 5 years with my mom, and I have no regrets.
There you go.
Yes. But when I came back here, I initially was going to go stay with engineering. And it was like, construction season is so crazy. You're working at least 12 hours a day. And I was like, I'm not seeing my mom anyway. So I actually quit my engineering and I actually worked some part-time jobs. And I've been doing eBay for a long time. I was doing eBay a lot. And my neighbor across the street, who I now consider my sister, Leandra, said, why don't you apply at Omaha Public Schools? She was a library para. And at that point, they didn't seem to have any openings for paras. So I got hired by the school system as a cafeteria lady. So I was a crazy cafeteria lady for about 3 months, and I kept then some of the para positions came open, and I kept applying, and I got initially hired in what's called an ACP room, which is Alternative Curriculum Protocol, and those are rooms where the children have much more complex disabilities. They're not mainstreamed, and so it's an insular classroom.
Okay.
And that classroom was kindergarten through second. I really like doing that, but that's an intense room to be in. It was a lot of fun. I love the kids. So in 2020, I transferred to another school into what's called resource. And so the kids I work with now are all mainstreamed, and they all have IEPs or multiple IEPs. And it's a basically special education. Okay. And I absolutely love the kids.
That's awesome.
I absolutely love them.
And it keeps you feeling energized and stuff. Like, I love spending time with kids because it always challenges me, and it also gives me hope. I see how awesome they are, and I feel like the world is kind of like in good hands. I feel like they're smarter than my generation was, or quicker witted, and maybe much more, seems like they're more confident than my generation was, or how I remember my education. So it gives me a lot of hope too. So I love spending time around kids as well.
They're allowed to speak. That was supposed to speak. Like I told you, we were rebels. We spoke anyway, but we weren't.
Yeah, but you were the rebels. Now these are a lot of kids are doing that now. Yeah.
So like I raised my kids to have a voice and well, look what I got now. I have very independent, strong-willed children. And
good.
That's right. That's right. Well, Auntie Rosie, we're here at the end. We've done over an hour. We're so grateful for your time, and we love you. We love your fans as well. We want to definitely stay in touch. And of course, we're always in your lives all the time, no matter what. We're always there. But thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about before the end of the show?
I just wanted to touch one thing. A lot of people found me because of Noah, who's my son now. Mm-hmm. And he is getting married September 2nd, and I will be the mother of the groom.
Oh, congratulations.
And it was very weird how it all happened. It was almost, I say it's like kismet, because I did not know Noah before I saw his video. And Noah is trans non-binary, and his parents are evangelical Trumplicans who said goodbye and will not come to his wedding. And I saw the video, and I made a video response to it, having no idea where Noah lives. I mean, because it's TikTok. I mean, you could live anywhere. Mm-hmm. And so we started talking through direct message, and I was like, "So where do you live?" And he says, "Omaha." I'm like,
that is kismet. Omaha? That's kismet.
He lives about 3 miles from me.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
He and Bat, who is going to be his spouse, when I was up at Pride Minneapolis, they watched my cats. I mean, he took me out for Mother's Day. I had my first Mother's Day.
So congratulations. That is so, yeah. And that's another way that the internet and TikTok, that's a healthy way that is connecting us. I'm always really excited to hear about things like that.
It is. And I have never been a mother before, so I always think I'm kind of like, okay, am I doing it right? But
no one's ever prepared. No one's ever prepared.
I still ask
right. And I have an adult son now who, you don't want to, it's like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't text him every day. But it's those sort of things where we actually do have a real relationship. So
that's beautiful.
That is going to be happening September 2nd. And then, Omaha Pride, I was invited to ride in a car. I'm not the Grand Marshal or anything. I'm just one of the fat bitch float, I guess. And they said, well, you can have somebody ride with you. And I was like, oh, well, no one's going to ride with me. So but then just recently they said, oh, well, the car actually fits 3. So it's going to be me, Noah, and his future spouse, Bat, are going to all be in the car together.
Nice. That's nice.
It'll be a family, that's a family car now. That's so cool.
Right. So
I just wanted to mention 2 things. One, anybody who would like to follow Rosie, I highly advise that you do. It'll keep you happy and smiling. Her TikTok information should be up in the description. And I want to thank Rosie for coming in and tell you, if you ever have anything you want to promote or there's an issue or whatever, you want to just shout at us. Once we bring people on, you kind of like, family.
You're in the family, we do it like that. Now you're in the family. So you just say, I want to come back on, and we got shows, and definitely you'll be here. I mean, you're already in.
Well, thank you so much. I have lots of people I could recommend for guests. So.
Oh, excellent. Please. We would love that. That would be friends of friends, and you can even come on with them, or they can come on separately. Sure. We have topic shows. We have the Journeys is more about highlighting, the guest journey, but we have all kinds of different shows.
And one other thing is you have a special tomorrow night, somebody coming on live with you tomorrow night, right? Do you want
I'm trying to do what I call like a mental health. It's not for diagnosis. It's not for, anything like that, but it's to share a story. And the first one was my moderator, Nurse Genesis. And she it was about infant loss. She had twins, and one of them was it was a severe birth defect, and the baby lived about 45 minutes. So she gave her story about that, and then tomorrow will be Rev Carla, and she's going to be talking about religious trauma and deconstructing.
Yeah, so, and she's really awesome too. She's also on
TikTok. I love her.
So check her out. Yeah, it's an experience. So check her out.
And so I'm trying to do. I don't really have a schedule for this yet, but I'm trying to do it maybe once every 2 weeks, and just have somebody with, it could be a coming out story, it could be a divorce story, it could be some like a profound, life change or something like that, just to share a story.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is
I'm
so
very
cool.
happy to see that your cats are loving
Yes.
it.
Well,
They
yeah,
were
and I have that's Clarity.
Hi, Clarity.
She's my little girl. She's the one who is the fierce one. She's the littlest one, but she's the, let's just say she runs the house. Don't you? Yeah.
I just love we call those cat cameos. They're just so cool. Yes. And Sandy
She got a
D is
little bit
reminding
scared when she returned from Minneapolis.
What?
They were shunning her when she first
Oh,
came
yeah.
back.
Oh, I got yelled at. I got meowed at. They wouldn't come near me. They were yowling at me. But by the next morning, we were friends again.
Life was fine.
Oh, yeah. Horses can be like that too. I've had experience with horses that were like that, but my cats always did me like that as well. They're very persnickety and they stand up for themselves. They say, hey, you should have been here for me.
I mean, I have some people that come into the lives and they say, I'm only here to watch a cat. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
That's totally understandable. Nothing will ever be as interesting as a cat. So
right.
That's okay. That's fine. Yes. So Sandy D is reminding us No Icing is coming on after this. So stick around on Cosmos Creative Television. It's a super special late edition, some incredible guests. And of course, Sandy D herself will be there and I'll be there too. So hang out everybody for some more live programming going all the way up to after 11 p.m. tonight Eastern. And Auntie Rosie, we love you. Thank you for being here. We will
Thank you so much for having me.
Follow Auntie Rosie, everybody, and keep watching her lives. We'll be in her lives
like
too. We can
fangirling.
reconvene. Yeah, we're all fangirling. Okay, good night.